We are going to talk about word choice. Last one. Look at this sentence. I walked into the room and saw some food. It's a pretty plain sentence using vague words like room and food. What I mean by vague is, I don't know, it's not very specific. I don't know what room it is. I don't know what food it is. So we don't get a very vivid picture of what's happening. And remember, you want to do that in your story. You want to be able to picture it in your head. Now, if we replace some of those words with more precise ones, we might end up with a sentence like this. I crept into the kitchen. See how that's more precise than I walked? And spotted a chocolate cake on the counter. So spotted versus saw. Chocolate cake makes me visualize what the food is. Okay? Now it just got a little bit more interesting. Okay? If we change the words again, we get a completely different idea in our heads. I rushed into the classroom and found 7 grilled cheese sandwiches waiting on my desk. Okay? So choosing the right words is one of the best ways to make your writing a lot more interesting. So these guidelines will help you make more powerful word choices. The first is to choose precise nouns and vivid verbs. I'm going to be saying that over and over again. Precise nouns, vivid verbs. Nouns can be very general or very precise. For example, saying I have a pet is vague. Right? And vague means it's not very specific. I have a dog is more precise. And I have a Chihuahua is even better. Or a pug, my favorite dog. Okay, so that's even more precise and even more interesting. So this is fine. This is better. And this is the best one yet. The same is true for verbs. I went to school is pretty drab and boring, but I hurried to school gives us a more vivid picture of what is happening. Okay? So if you find that your writing is a bit boring, look for ways to make your nouns more specific and your verbs more vivid. The next guideline is to use fewer adjectives and adverbs. So an adjective describes a noun. Okay? This sentence, the small, timid orange cat looked out from behind the couch, uses 3 adjectives. Okay, remember, adjectives describe a noun. So cat is a noun. Cat is person, place, or thing. Okay? And these adjectives describe it. Small cat, timid cat, orange cat. Okay? This is an easy way, listing adjectives like this is an easy way to give details, but it can interrupt the rhythm of the story, and there's better ways to do it. Let me show you how. So let's get rid of that one. Since most cats are around the same size, small can be left out. Or we could describe the cat as a kitten. Okay, so this is how we're doing revising. Okay? And remember, revising is making better choices in your writing. Okay, we're not looking at punctuation, we're not looking at capitalization or anything like that. Okay? And let's look at the word timid. Timid can be shown with a better verb. So instead of looked, okay, we could say peered. If we want to keep orange just to add some interest, that's okay, but it doesn't have any impact on the story, and that could be actually left out too. Okay? Now we have a tighter sentence with fewer adjectives and stronger nouns and verbs. Okay? So the orange kitten peered out from behind the couch. It's better, even though this one was longer. Longer doesn't necessarily make for a better sentence. So there we go. The orange kitten peered out from behind the couch. All right, now let's talk about adverbs. An adverb describes a verb. In this sentence, the adverb slowly, hold on. In this sentence, the adverb slowly is describing the word walked. So how did she walk? Slowly. Remember, adjectives describe nouns, Adverbs describe verbs. Okay? So this is an okay way to give your reader more detail about how she walked, but it would be an even better, there's a better way to do it. You could use a precise verb and get rid of the adverb completely. Okay? So each of these three examples uses a different verb, and each one means something slightly different. Let's see. Instead of she walked slowly, she limped. Okay, same thing as this, but you're doing it in a tighter way. And frankly, this one makes me visualize it. She shuffled across the field. Gives you a different visual, right, versus limped. She tiptoed across the field. Okay, and then the third guideline is try not to repeat. So in this passage, the word jump is used 3 times very close together. Okay, this starts to feel repetitive. Sometimes the only way to notice this problem is by reading your work out loud, which I'm going to have you do. And then you can hear the repetition. And if you do a control find in your paper, you can do control find and search for certain words, and you can see how many times you said them, and it'll highlight them. Okay? So then you can find places where you need more variety. Now, if we replace 2 of those jump words with other words, instead of I jumped, I jerked forward in one swift motion, but I must have flinched. Okay? So in 4 gross little hops instead of jumped. So we get a richer, more interesting sentence. So keep this in mind when you're writing. It's fine to use the same word many times in a story. With small words like the or and, it's not a problem at all. But with bigger words that come close together, it's better to give your readers some variety, especially if they're in the same paragraph. All right, finally, remember to write like people talk. And there's ways that you can, I know you guys are better at this than I am, but there's, I'm confident that there's a way on your Chromebooks to sometimes talk out your story and have it transcribe it and type it for you. A lot of people do that with their phone. Okay? So you can write like people talk. In your search for more interesting words, it's easy to go overboard and end up with a sentence that looks like this. Disconcerted, her countenance flushed a deep crimson. Most people don't really talk like that, and if you use too many fancy words, your reader will have a hard time getting into your story, and it doesn't sound like you. It doesn't sound like your voice. Okay? So instead of this, embarrassed, she felt her face flush a deep red. So this I would use, for me personally, disconcerted. I know what that word means. Okay, but embarrassed is a word that I use much more often. Okay, so this sentence still keeps things interesting, but it uses mostly words that readers are familiar with. So I want you to keep that in mind. Like, your audience for this is going to be me and your middle school classmates. Okay, so you need to make sure that you're using words that people your age use to talk. But you can't be too, don't be too casual with your words, okay? So, now, your task. Again, read your story out loud, and I'm going to have you record yourselves. Do this slowly so you really hear it. And then find places where you can use more specific nouns and verbs. If you are using a lot of adjectives and adverbs, try to cut some of them out and replace them with good nouns and verbs instead. Sorry, my dog was barking. So if you use a lot of adjectives and adverbs, try to cut some of these out, replace them with good nouns and verbs instead. And then you're going to look for places where you're repeating the same word over and over and try to replace some of these with different ones. All right.